questions on the push west, the trails, the railroads, and the land grabs that reshaped a continent, from the Oregon Trail to the Caribou Goldfields. We start easy, but by the double shot, only the real experts are left standing. Pour your coffee and keep score. What phrase expressed the 19th century belief that the United States was destined to expand across the continent? A. Manifest destiny. B. The American dream. C. Providence's call. D. The Continental Creed. Which 1862 law granted 160 acres of public land to settlers who worked and improved it for 5 years? A. The Preemption Act. B. The Homestead Act. C. The Land Ordinance. D. The General Allotment Act. The 1846 to 47 Wagon Party, trapped by early snow in the Sierra Nevada, resorting to desperate measures to survive, is known as what? A. The Donner Party. B. The Bidwell-Bartleson Party. C. The Stevens-Townsend Party. D. The Applegate Party. Canada's 1869 purchase of a vast Western territory, driven partly by fears that the United States would expand into the region after its Civil War, transferred that land from which chartered company? A. The Northwest Company. B. The Selkirk Colony. C. The Hudson's Bay Company. D. The Canada Company. The Hudson's Bay Company appeared in quizzes 1 and 4. Now it sells the land back to the new Dominion government, which feared the language of manifest destiny and American settlers spilling north into the prairies. Canada formed the Northwest Mounted Police in 1873 and sent them west to establish law and order ahead of settlement. This force is the forerunner of which modern federal police service? A. The Ontario Provincial Police. B. The Canada Border Services Agency. C. The Dominion Police. D. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP. Within a few years, the RCMP will greet a very famous exile crossing the border from the south. Prospectors who rushed to California after the 1848 gold discovery were nicknamed what after the year they arrived? A. The 48s. B. Boomers. C. 49ers. D. 39ers. This rush moved so fast California skipped territorial status entirely, which is exactly why the compromise coming up later this round had to happen. Now that you're warmed up, we'll move on to the medium roast round. At the 1869 Golden Spike Ceremony, the Union Pacific Building West met which company building east from California? A. The Southern Pacific. B. The Northern Pacific. C. The Central Pacific Railroad. D. The Atchison, Topeka, and Santa Fe. The 1789 crisis at Nootka Sound, off Vancouver Island, brought Britain to the brink of war with which European rival over fur trading rights on the Pacific coast? A. Russia. B. Spain. C. France. D. Portugal. In 1774, Captain Juan Perez anchored his ship, the Santiago, off Nootka where he traded with First Nations people for furs. He did not establish a presence on land, which caused the British to deny Spanish sovereignty over the area. Which group of immigrant laborers made up the majority of the workforce blasting the Central Pacific Railway's route through the Sierra Nevada? A. Irish immigrants. B. Chinese immigrants. C. German immigrants. D. Cornish immigrants. Which legislative package admitted California as a free state while strengthening federal fugitive slave laws? A. The Missouri Compromise. B. The Compromise of 1850. C. The Kansas-Nebraska Act. D. The Crittenden Compromise. The United States' 1862 Homestead Act had a Canadian counterpart in 1872, offering prairie land to settlers under what name? A. The Indian Act. B. The British North America Act. C. The Canada Company Charter. D. The Dominion Lands Act. The Santa Fe Trail primarily connected Missouri with which trading destination in the Southwest? A. Santa Fe, New Mexico. B. Taos. C. Albuquerque. D. El Paso. You've made it through the first 2 rounds, and you still have time to add to your score. British Columbia's Caribou Gold Rush of the early 1860s drew thousands of prospectors north along a rugged new route built specifically to reach the goldfields, known as what? A. The Chilkoot Trail. B. The Dawson Trail. C. The Caribou Wagon Road. D. The Fraser Canyon Highway. Under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, Mexican citizens in the ceded territories retained property rights under existing Mexican-era land grants known as what? A. Ranchos. B. Ejidos. C. Encomiendas. D. Haciendas. Sent in 1857 to assess whether the Canadian prairies were fit for agricultural settlement, which British expedition leader surveyed the region and warned that a large arid stretch in the south was unsuitable for farming. A. George Simpson. B. James Hector. C. John Palliser. D. David Thompson. After thousands of Chinese laborers helped build the Canadian Pacific Railway through the treacherous Fraser Canyon, Canada's government responded to renewed anti-Chinese sentiment by imposing what? In 1885, A. A head tax on Chinese immigrants. B. An outright immigration ban. C. Mandatory return passage. D. A literacy test. The same workers who took on the railway's most dangerous work were met with a head tax once it was done. Hundreds of families were kept apart for decades because of it. Some never reunited at all. In 1793, which Scottish-Canadian fur trader led the first recorded overland expedition across Canada's wilderness to the Pacific coast, beating Lewis and Clark by more than a decade? A. Simon Fraser. B. David Thompson. C. John Palliser. D. Alexander Mackenzie. Mackenzie's crossing predates Lewis and Clark by more than a decade. Simon Fraser and David Thompson mapped and claimed huge stretches of what is now British Columbia in the decades after Mackenzie's crossing. The U.S. Census Bureau declared the American frontier line effectively closed based on the findings of which decennial count? A. The 1880 census. B. The 1890 census. C. The 1900 census. D. The 1870 census. Only 2 questions left. Answer both correctly, and you will prove yourself a westward expansion expert. Critics mocked the 1867 purchase of which territory as Seward's Folly, doubting its value at the time? A. The Louisiana Territory. B. The Oregon Country. C. The Gadsden Purchase. D. Alaska. We first met Alaska back in quiz number 2. It was bought from Russia in 1867. At the time, critics called it Seward's Folly, 2 cents an acre for what looked like frozen nothing. Then came the gold, then the oil. Turns out the folly was doubting Seward. And geographically, it's a fitting final note. Alaska sits right where the American and Canadian westward stories meet. Which 2 ill-fated 1856 Mormon immigrant groups, caught by early snow in Wyoming while pulling their belongings on foot, are remembered together as a defining tragedy of the westward migration? A. The Donner and Reed Companies. B. The Oatman and Baker Companies. C. The the Bidwool and Bartleson companies. D. The Willie and Martin handcart companies. That's it for our Westward Expansion Quiz. Remember to drop your score in the comments, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. Next time, we turn to the nations who are already in North America. The peoples whose land every trail, railway, and land grab in this quiz actually crossed. Same time, same cup.